I would like to thank you very much for having me on this specific engagement, and thanks to the listeners and viewers for joining us. I'm Robert Nanima. I'm a member of the African Committee of Experts on the Rights and Welfare of the Child, and I also double as the Special Rapporteur for children affected by armed conflict in Africa. It's a great conversation that we're having today and a great honor to engage in this. And I would like in a special way to thank AfriChild for ensuring that this has been made possible. There are usually questions that come to our spaces. What is the Africa Children's Charter? What is the Africa Children's Committee? How do they help the normal person? How do they engage with state parties? How do they engage with civil society organizations? I hope that in this conversation, I'll be able to deal with some of those aspects. About the Africa Children's Charter, the full name is a mouthful. It's the African Charter on the Rights and Welfare of the Child. And in that charter, we provide for specific rights, principles, and rules that govern the child in terms of his rights, in terms of his or her rights, in terms of protection, in terms of promotion of his or her rights, and aspects of prevention. So the Africa Children's Charter governs the continental spaces of Africa, and it has rights with regard to the promotion and protection of the rights of the child. It's a sister instrument to the Convention on the Rights of the Child, which is at a global level, but for the Africa Children's Charter, it speaks to the continental perspective. It has various entry points that are very instructive for this conversation. One, it provides for the 4 principles that inform the promotion and protection of the rights of the child. The use of the best interests principle, whereby the issues of the child or matters concerning a child are of paramount importance, and the state is expected to take them as the paramount consideration in all matters concerning a child. The point of departure from the Convention on the Rights of the Child is that the best interest is the paramount consideration in the Africa Children's Charter, while in the Convention on the Rights of the Child, it is a paramount consideration. So that would mean that there is a higher threshold of protection under the Africa Children's Charter. Other principles are right to life, survival and development, and the aspect of non-discrimination, and finally participation or consideration of the views of the child. I'll speak to the aspect of consideration of the views of the child for a minute. When you look at consideration of the views of the child from the Africa Children's Charter, it also provides a higher threshold because it provides various spaces, they're about 6 in number, where a child is expected to participate. Is expected to participate at the family setting, at the position of the neighborhood or the community, at the position of the national governance structures, at the position of international law, continental law, and the position of international law. So those 5 to 6 positions indicate spaces where the child should be able to engage in matters that concern him or her, also offering a higher threshold under the African Children's Charter. Now, in addition to the 4 principles, there are some specific guiding aspects that inform the added value that the Africa Children's Charter brings on board. One, the definition of a child. It defines a child as a person below the age of 18. This is a stark difference to the Convention on the Rights of the Child that looks at a child as someone below the age of 18 or any other age as far as it's provided for in the national law. The danger with that position is that a person who would otherwise get protection is barred from getting that protection by virtue of the fact that he is no longer a child under a specific national law. So the use of the straight 18 definition also provides a higher threshold. In addition, the Africa Children's Charter also provides for specific lived realities of the African child. For instance, aspects of child marriages, aspects of harmful traditional practices, and the need to protect children from them. All that are very intricate. The most critical of all of them is the non-delineation or non-distinction between civil and political rights on the one hand and socioeconomic rights on the other. The fact that the Africa Children's Charter looks at them as simply rights and obligations to which a state party to the Charter should ensure that it provides protection to the child and that it takes all necessary measures to protect and promote the rights of that child, shows that it does not matter the nature of the right. What matters is that the state takes specific steps necessary within its means, whether they are judicial steps, whether they are administrative steps, to ensure that the child is protected. I would go on and on, but those are some of the critical aspects that speak to the added value of the Africa Children's Charter and the use of the 4 best principles. Now, the Charter on its own cannot operate in isolation. It has within it and in its normative foundations an institution called the African Committee on the Rights and Welfare of the Child. I'll refer to it as the Africa Children's Committee. So the Africa Children's Committee is mandated under the African Charter to monitor the promotion and protection of the rights of the child. When you look closely, you discover that the concept of prevention is not in the wording. But be that as it may, the Africa Children's Committee reads prevention into protection and prevention into promotion. So much as the wording on prevention is missing, the fact that there is promotion and protection, we read initiatives of prevention into the application of the Charter. The Africa Children's Committee is made up of 11 members of moral integrity who are selected from the 5 regions in Africa by way of an election, and they are mandated to promote and protect the rights of the child for a period of 5 years. That's the first term, and they are eligible to another term of 5 years. The question becomes, how come there are 11 members from a continent that has 5 regions? It would mean that there should be 10. Yes, 10 members in the sense of 2 members from each region who are also chosen on grounds of gender, 1 male and 1 female, and on grounds of region. Now, there's what we call a floating seat or an additional seat, which forms the basis for the 11th member. So once this member is elected into this office, that member will retain the floating seat for either 5 or 10 years, depending on whether he makes it for the second term. So the floating seat before 2020 was in West Africa, but after 2020, it has since moved to Southern Africa. So Southern Africa has 1 male and 1 female, and also another member by virtue of the floating seat. Now, the mandate of the committee members is carried out in their personal capacity and not as representatives of the countries that they come from. This means while they are experts, at the same time they prevail and engage to give specific engagements to state parties and other stakeholders from their individual perspective. In the engagement of their work, they have specific working methods that includes the consideration of state party reports and giving concluding observations to that end. That includes carrying out research, that includes acting as country rapporteurs, whereby we see that for every member out of the 11, they have 5 countries attached to them. They also work as thematic rapporteurs, meaning that there are 11 thematic areas and each member guides in a specific area. We also have working groups for the thematic areas that are not covered under the 11. For instance, the working group on climate change, the working group on children's rights and business, the working group on implementation of decisions, and the working group on children and disabilities. So all these 4 mechanisms that are used by the African Children's Committee to ensure that there is a monitoring of the promotion and protection of the rights of the child. I believe that we still have a lot to do in terms of our engagements, and we should use various stakeholders, such as civil society organizations who help out with research which comes to us and we engage it, such as national human rights institutions that go ahead to help us in ensuring that promotion and protection sees the light of day. What this means for the child is that we put the child at the center of the intervention, that we look at the challenges that this child presents and get interventions that would speak to the improvement of the specific child in the specific space. I thank you for listening, for watching this, and I hope that I've added value to your perspectives of the African Committee of Experts on the Rights and Welfare of the Child.